Madam Speaker, Senator Bob Menendez gave an important speech last Thursday, December 10th, opposing concessions to the dictatorship in Cuba. In his speech, Senator Menendez read out loud an open letter which had been sent by one of Cuba's true heroes, a giant of the resistance to the Cuban tyranny, Jorge Luis García Pérez Antunez, here photographed with his wife, Yris Pérez Aguilera. A letter to the titular Cuban dictator, Raúl Castro, on Tuesday, December 8th. Mr. Raúl Castro, Antunez wrote, "For months now, my wife, Yris Tamara Pérez Aguilera, and I have been kept in extrajudicial house arrest by your political police. Mr. Dictator, let me ask you some questions that may help clarify some doubts for those fellow countrymen of mine who may at some point have had hope your government would reduce the repression or even carry out democratic openings. What do you feel when you incite or allow people who call themselves men to beat and drag through the streets women like Damaris Moya Portieles, Maria Diaz Rondon, Ana Alfonso Artiaga, Sara Marta Fonseca, Yris Pérez, and now more recently the blogger Joanny Sanchez? How can you sleep after your subordinates cruelly beat more than once Idania Llanes Contreras while she was pregnant? How can you and your government talk about the battle of ideas when ideas constantly face repression with beatings and arrests and years of imprisonment? Maybe your followers will not dare respond, but I," continued to write Antunez, "who am on the long list of those who do not fear you, will answer. You act like that because you are a cruel man, insensitive to the pain and suffering of others, because loyal to your anti-democratic and dictatorial vocation, you are convinced that dictatorships such as yours can only sustain themselves by fear and torture, and that even the most minimal of openings can end the only thing that interests you, staying in power." And finally, Antunez wrote, "Speaking of my case in particular, I will respond to you without the need of first having to ask you the motives for such focused repression against my person." Antunez, by the way, Madam Speaker, now 45 years old, was a political prisoner for 17 years until 2007. Your government, he continued to write, and its lackey repressive forces cannot forgive my two great and only crimes. First, that for almost 2 decades of torture and cruelties during my unjust and severe imprisonment, you were not able to break my dignity or my position as a political prisoner. Second, because despite all the violence and harassment, and above all the risk of returning to prison, I have decided to not abandon my country, where I will continue fighting for a change I believe to be as necessary as it is inevitable. Signed in the city of Placetas by Jorge Luis García Pérez Antunez, Tuesday, December 8. On Friday, December 11, Antunez and his wife, Yris Pérez Aguilera, she is a heroine, were violently arrested. The doctrine of Fidel Castro's hero, Adolf Hitler, was again devoutly followed. The very first essential for success is a perpetually constant and regular employment of violence. "This is kidnapping," yelled Yris. "Long live human rights," shouted Antunez as they were being beaten and taken away by the Castro's political police on Friday. I condemn the brutal arrest of these two heroes by the Castro's cowardly thugs. The days of the Castro's racist totalitarian tyranny in Cuba are coming to an end. Those who have collaborated with the violence and brutality of the racist regime will face justice and eternal shame. Antunez, Yris Pérez Aguilera, her brother Mario Pérez Aguilera, Oscar Elias Bisset, Darcy Ferrer, and many other heroic political prisoners of Cuba will be the elected leaders of free Cuba. That change is as necessary as it is inevitable. Because of heroes like Antunez and Yris Pérez Aguilera, the day of freedom of Cuba, the day of freedom in Cuba is approaching.